Very good morning, respected teachers, my seniors, and dear colleagues. Our department would be presenting a very interesting case of complex congenital heart defect with presented with septicemia and severe PH. So before that, I would like you to take you to our how pediatric cardiac surgery evolved in this part of the country, especially the northern India and Delhi, Rajasthan, this belt. This is how world started. In 1954, Dr. Walton Lilly did the first open heart surgery, a VSD closure in a boy. When at that time heart lung machine was not invented, so father was used as a heart lung machine. So that is called cross circulation. You can see the left panel, the heart father's femoral vessels are exposed and is connected to patient's femoral vessels. Dr. Walton Lilly is in the center closing the VSD. This is how then in North India, the AIIMS was the first center where the pediatric cardiac surgery was started in 80s and early 90s, and you can see the legendary Padma Bhushan awardee Dr. Venugopal is operating upon a boy, and this was our ICU, and still the same ICU, a pediatric cardiac surgical ICU. So then we established the first committed pediatric cardiac surgical unit in the country in 1995. Then we moved on to Jaipur Fortis Escorts in 2011, and we did approximately 7,000 open heart surgery and 1,000 cardiac interventions. So this is our team on the right panel. Then we moved to Mahatma Gandhi Hospital about a year or so back. This is our state-of-the-art OT. You can see on the right panel, you can see our OT team, all anesthetists, perfusionists, all staff, associates. This is our beautiful pediatric cardiac ICU. Most of the babies kept here are the small infants or newborns. So they are being taken care of by our the right panel. You can see a committed cardiac intensive care team. So most of the babies you can see are on the bassinets. So our population, small baby infant population is usually 60-70% of the all surgeries or interventions we are performing. This is our pediatric cardiac sciences OPD. So two coordinators also you can see along with us. This is our echo lab. So department structure is there is one pediatric cardiac surgeon and three pediatric cardiologists, Dr. Sanjay Khatri, Dr. Kanupriya, and Dr. Prerna Bhatt. The two senior cardiac anesthetists are there, Dr. Gaurav and Dr. Saurabh. So we are led pediatric cardiac intensive care team is led by Dr. Pawan and Dr. Sandeep Jakar, they are senior most, and Dr. Apurva is also helping them. The three physician associates are there, and senior physician Dr. Anil More, and OT and ICU being taken care of by Mr. Sadiq and Imran. So our core competencies as cardiac surgical program is a small infant pediatric cardiac surgery. All kind of complex surgeries we are doing. So catheter intervention, all kind of device closure like PD, ASD, VSD, and stanting in newborns. So we recently started a fetal cardiac clinic as well. So these are our research activity. One paper is already published in reputed Annals of Pediatric Cardiology journal, and two papers are also accepted in the same journal. One is aortic root abscess and severe AR. So this one fetal cardiac clinic we have started recently. It was inaugurated by Dr. Emerald Sonkar sir, and we conducted first fetal cardiology CM in our state about 2 months back. So we are being supported by 4 NGOs, 2 national and 2 international NGOs. The Genesis in Extra Mile from the country and the International Love Without Boundaries in Children Heart Link. Over and above this, we are amply supported financially by our own hospital for the smaller, the poor babies. So these are the few media coverages for our rare heart surgeries. The rare heart tumor size, open heart surgery in a 12 hours baby. So we did a neonatal aortic thrombectomy. We saved the baby's limb. We also did a coronary translocation first time in this very rare kind of situation. So we also put a PDS stent in a 3 days old baby that was first in the state. Also we're doing stitchless heart surgeries. So our data is to be done approximately in more than last 1 year. Total number of open heart surgeries are 400. Total cath interventions are approximately 175. Total echoes are 4,600. Total registrations are 2,000. Total ICU admissions in our pediatric cardiac ICUs are 550. So this is, you can see the blue bar is suggesting the approximately 200 babies. So the total number is 400, and 200 babies are either neonates or small infants. Rest are others. This is the breakup of our heart surgeries patients. Most of them are, you can see the yellow, big yellow bars are TAPVC, tetralogy, arterial switch, BT shunts, gland shunts. This is last 15 years, 0 to 3 months, intentionally put to show how the public is getting aware. More and more neonates and small infants are getting operated. This is data less than 2.5 kgs. As there is no national database to compare with, so we have to compare our data with the STS national database of USA. And there is one center called Children's Hospital Philadelphia, USA. So we compared our data with those two averages. So we found that we are far ahead of American national database, STS national database, and we are lagging little behind the world's top center, that is CHOP. We compared it with the odd ratio. You can see the red one is better than us. So highlight of this analysis was like in neonates infants less than 2.4 kg mortality is 8%. So around 1 year it is 1%, and more than 2 years it is 0.5%. So approximately we have almost zero mortality in TOF, DORV, TAPVC, AV canal, VST, AST group in last 15 years. So in all variables, results are far better than STS national database of USA. So these are the few babies who underwent, small babies who underwent cardiac surgery. So if you refer the patient at right time, it reaches here at right time, and then the chances of survival are more, and the long-term outcome is better. So these are the few patients who underwent surgery in the young age and very small when they were neonates. Now they have grown up. So thank you very much for your attention. I will call upon Dr. Bhumika Agrawal to continue with the rest of the presentation. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, respected dignitaries, senior faculty members. I am Dr. Bhumika Agrawal, first year resident from Department of Pediatrics. It was my privilege to be a part of management of this case. So let me begin with the introduction of this case. This is a case of 7-month-old male child who was a known case of complex congenital heart disease who was diagnosed outside as truncus arteriosus at the age of 4 months. Before being referred to us, the child was admitted in a government hospital for evaluation and treatment of pneumonia for 7 days. The child was treated there for 7 days, but due to worsening of sepsis and respiratory distress, the child was referred to our institution for specialized and advanced pediatric care and management. The child was brought to emergency on oxygen support with the following vitals: heart rate of 132 beats per minute, saturation was 89% on oxygen support, pressures were 100/46, temperature was 98.4, and respiratory rate was 62 beats per minute. Child's antenatal, natal and postnatal details were uneventful. So on day 1 of admission in the ICU, signs of respiratory distress were present, and we initiated non-invasive ventilation. Cardiac and respiratory supports were escalated. All relevant investigations were sent, and child was started on calorie-dense NG feeds. This is the chest X-ray on admission, where you can see that there is patchy homogeneous opacities in the lower lobe of the right lung field, and the left lung is completely washed out, suggesting of consolidation. It might be probably due to secondary to pneumonia. CP angles and the bony prominences appear to be normal. So we started with initial management. As you can see in the column that there is outside reports and reports on day 1 of admission. The platelets had dropped significantly. TLC count had raised from 13,000 to 15,000, and CRP had raised from 40 to more than 90 mg per dl. So we initiated with IV antibiotics, ionotropes and vasodilators were initiated. Chest physiotherapy and decongestives were started. We had done a 2D echo to know the exact cardiac status of the child. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Prerna ma'am to take us through the 2D echo findings and help us understand this case further.
Thank you, Bhumika. Good morning, everyone. So going ahead with the 2D echocardiography. So the video clip on the left shows, it's an apical 4-chamber view showing the right atrium connected to the right ventricle and the left atrium connected to the left ventricle. We can see that there is biventricular enlargement with a fairly good biventricular function. The second video clip shows mild tricuspid regurgitation. There is a small ASD which can be visualized and an increased pulmonary venous return into the left atrium. This is a subcostal imaging sagittal view which shows a moderate sized perimembranous VSD below the aortic valve. On color Doppler, we could see that there is bidirectional shunting across the VSD, which is predominantly from the RV into the left ventricle, and there is an unobstructed flow across the aortic arch. In this subcostal imaging, we can see that the pulmonary valve is rising from the anteriorly placed right ventricle, and on further anterior sweep, the right ventricle gave rise to the main pulmonary artery, but the main pulmonary artery just gave off one branch, that is the left pulmonary artery. On further echo, we could see that the right pulmonary artery was arising from the aorta. This is a suprasternal view showing the left aortic arch with a normal branching pattern. Normally, there is antegrade flow in systole and diastole in the descending aorta, but the red color flow is suggestive of a diastolic flow reversal, which indicates a runoff, an aortic runoff. Hence, our final diagnosis was anomalous origin of the RPA from the aorta and the main pulmonary artery giving rise to the LPA, a moderate size perimembranous VSD, and a left aortic arch with a pandiastolic flow and a fairly good biventricular function. Just a few points on this congenital heart defect. So, hemitruncus is a rare congenital heart defect in which one of the pulmonary arteries, and generally the right pulmonary artery, arises from the ascending aorta. Initially, this congenital heart defect presents in early infancy with signs of heart failure due to a large left to right shunting, and if untreated, the high flow and high systemic pressure results in pulmonary vascular changes in that lung, and this child then presents to us with cyanosis. So, in order to confirm our diagnosis, to look at the site of origin of the RPA, to rule out any associated lesions, to assess the lung parenchyma, we ordered for a CT pulmonary angiogram. The CT findings will now be explained by Dr. Sarthak.
Thank you, Dr. Prerna. Good morning, respected dignitaries, faculty members, and my fellow colleagues. I will be presenting the imaging findings of this case. So, let's first take a look at the AP chest X-ray of this patient. We can see patchy opacities in the right lung field. Along with this, we can also see a slight rotational tilt, but we are able to still appreciate that the mediastinal contents appear widened and the contents appear shifted to the left side, nearly completely occupying the left lung field. The visualized parts of the left lung field appear hazy and the left hemithorax appears almost completely opaque. So this suggests that there is a collapsed consolidation of the left lung along with ipsilateral mediastinal shift. So on top of this, we can see that the bony landmarks and the soft tissue shadows appear normal, and there is no evidence of any costophrenic angle blunting. Before we move on to the patient's CT scan, I would like to show what a normal anatomy looks like on a CT. So the pulmonary artery bifurcates right here after it rises from the right ventricle, and there it is divided into the right and left pulmonary arteries. We can see that the left and the right pulmonary artery are more or less equal in diameter. This is a 3D reconstruction of the same image that I showed you earlier, where we can see the normal relationship between the pulmonary arteries and the aorta. We can see that the pulmonary trunk is in blue here, that gives rise to the right and the left pulmonary arteries respectively, and the aorta is in the right. The aorta is in the green. So this is a CT angiogram of the patient. We can see that the left lung field here appears reduced, and the parts that do remain show a high density indicating collapsed consolidation of the left lung.
The left bronchus is also barely visible, which indicates that it's also collapsed. We can see that the right pulmonary artery is originating from the ascending aorta, and the left pulmonary artery is originating from the from the main pulmonary trunk, which is originating from the right atrium. Sorry, the right ventricle. To explain this better, I have attached a sine clip of this case, which I will now play. Now, in this clip, we are moving in the axial plane, inferior to superiorly. The respective chambers of the heart are labeled. The respective chambers of the heart are labeled. Let's first follow the right ventricle. We are able to see that the pulmonary trunk is giving off just one branch, that is the left pulmonary artery, that is going into the left lung field. Now, if we follow the left ventricle, we are able to see. I'm so sorry, just one second. If we follow the left ventricle, we can see that the aorta is giving rise to the right pulmonary artery at the ascending part. At the same time, we can see that the pulmonary artery, compared to the left pulmonary artery, the diameter of the right pulmonary artery is larger. We can see ground glass opacities and segmental thickening in the right lung field, and almost a complete collapse consolidation of the left lung field. This is a 3D reconstruction of the same patient. The pulmonary trunk and the pulmonary trunk and the left pulmonary artery are marked in blue, and the aorta is in the red, with the right pulmonary artery seen as originating from the ascending aorta. So to summarize the key findings of this case, we have the anomalous origin of the right pulmonary artery from the aorta, as was confirmed, indicated on the echocardiogram, and we have the collapse consolidation of the left lung. Now, to continue the case forward, I would like to invite Dr. Bhumi. Thank you.
So now with the 2D echo and CT pulmonary angio being done, we had gotten the exact idea of the cardiac anatomy and pulmonary vasculature. But on day 2, the respiratory distress has worsened and we had to intubate the baby and take on mechanical ventilation. Central vascular access was secured and the ventilation was monitored by clinical condition, chest x-rays and blood gases. Meanwhile, we were also dealing with worsening of the sepsis. We were intimidated about the blood culture that was positive for Klebsiella pneumonia. IV antibiotics were upgraded accordingly, and ionotropes and vasodilators were titrated according to the need. Eventually, by day 3 of admission, given the underlying heart condition, there was an increased risk of infection and poor oxygenation, and the child remained on mechanical ventilation with persistent respiratory distress, and sepsis did not show any signs of improvement. As you can see that the inflammatory markers remain markedly elevated, both strongly suggestive of ongoing bacterial sepsis. This reflected that there was also it can be reflected in the hematological trends where there is fall in the hemoglobin, platelets, and the white cell count had initially risen and then began to fall, indicating a non-resolving or worsening infection. So at this point, our primary challenge was not the cardiac lesion, but rather dealing with sepsis first and before proceeding to any definitive cardiac management. So we continued with intensive medical management with the goal of supporting the lungs and improving the ventilation. Regular nebulization and chest physiotherapy was done to help mobilize the secretion and enhance the ventilation. Decongestives were administered to reduce the airway edema and proper oxygen and improve the oxygenation. Frequent position change was done as per the ICU protocol to avoid the bed-related complications and improve the drainage of the secretions and optimize the lung expansion. Although the prognosis appeared guarded and there was a very little hope of rapidly overcoming the sepsis, we allowed time for antibiotics and supportive therapy to take effect. This period reflected the challenge of managing a critically septic infant with underlying congenital heart disease, where supportive care and management were as vital as the active treatment. So at this point, by coming on day 5 of admission, our team found itself badly stuck because of the increasing ventilatory supports and worsening of sepsis and increasing the cardiac support. The chest x-rays also had shown no improvement. As you can see that the x-ray still shows persistent consolidation, which might lead to persistent respiratory failure. The sepsis was not resolving and the inflammatory markers remained high. The child required escalation of antibiotics and increasing cardiac support in the form of higher ionotropes. So this was an incredibly difficult phase because despite everything being done as per the protocol, the patient's condition continued to worsen. This was a turning point where we had to stop, reevaluate our plan, and plan for escalation of supportive measures. We also had overhanging risk of continuing medical management like slipping into organ failure, low cardiac output syndrome, or septic shock because all of this was showing no improvement. At this point, it became evident that continuing only conservative treatment would not change the outcome. So we were likely to move towards a tunnel where there was no light. Now the question was, how do we arrest this downfall? Should we operate? Should we not operate? Even if we operate, should it be a palliative surgery or a definitive surgery? After counseling the family members regarding high risk of the surgery, the decision was taken to move towards the surgical intervention, not as a last resort but as a strategic life-saving step to correct the underlying heart lesion and improve the systemic outflow. So now I would like to call upon Dr. Veeni to take us further on this case with surgical management. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Veeni Mehta, Senior Resident from the Department of CTVS. I will talk about the surgical intervention. So after all the investigations and management done until now, we decided to go for surgical intervention after proper consent from the parents. Question arises that should we go for palliative management or a complete repair, as we were left with no other option but to operate. Palliative management in such cases is pulmonary artery banding, which is done to protect the pulmonary vasculature from excessive flow and prevent irreversible pulmonary artery hypertension. Left pulmonary artery banding was not done as the lung was already consolidated. Right pulmonary artery banding was tried, but there was drop in saturation along with bradycardia. Here we can see in the first diagram the normal anatomy of the heart, and compared to the second diagram in which we can see the congenital defects present in our case. On the top is the hemitruncus, that is an attachment between the right pulmonary artery and the aorta. Second one being the PDA, patent ductus arteriosus, that is an attachment between the aorta and the left pulmonary artery. Third is the atrial septal defect present between the two atria. Fourth one being the ventricular septal defect present between the two ventricles. Being aware of the mortality, we took the risk of going for complete repair as it was our last resort. Our surgery plan was to address the four defects. We planned closure after division of the patent ductus arteriosus. For the second defect, that is the hemitruncus, we planned right pulmonary artery separation from the aorta and reimplantation over the main pulmonary artery. For ventricular septal defect, we planned closure using Dacron patch with fenestration to protect the heart from pulmonary artery hypertension at the risk of some reverse shunting. We planned to address the atrial septal defect the same way. Anesthesia considerations during our surgery was maintenance of anesthesia with opioids, low dose volatile anesthetic agents, lung protective ventilation strategies, inodilators like milrinone and sildenafil, inotropics like dobutamine and adrenaline, and ultrafiltration was done during CPB. This is what we found after opening the chest. The right atrium and the right ventricles were distended and tensed. The main pulmonary artery was dilated and tensed. The right pulmonary artery was arising from the aorta, and the right lung was hyperemic. Now we will proceed with the surgical steps. A midline chest incision was given with the sternotomy, and then sternotomy was done. Both pleura and pericardium were open. So here we can see the chambers of the heart, the right ventricle, and the one tied at the corner is the right atrium. And on lifting the right atrium, we can see the superior vena cava and an unusual branch coming off the aorta, that is the right pulmonary artery. Then we did an epicardial echo, on which we can appreciate the ventricular septal defect with evident right to left shunt. We first ligated the patent ductus arteriosus and looped the right pulmonary artery. After this, we took the patient on cardiopulmonary bypass, as you can see, by aortobicaval cannulation. The right pulmonary artery was snugged to prevent pulmonary steal. The right pulmonary artery was also mobilized through dissection up to the hilum. After this, we inspected the main pulmonary artery and the left pulmonary artery and mobilized the left pulmonary artery. Aorta was also freed from the structures beneath for the tunneling of the right pulmonary artery. Now we are putting a clamp over the aortopulmonary junction towards the aorta while holding the right pulmonary artery. After this, we divided the right pulmonary artery and simultaneously closed the aortic wall as it can retract and bleed. Closure was done using Prolene sutures. Now we are replacing the clamp over the aorta for the second layer of closure, again using Prolene sutures. The right pulmonary artery is being divided completely now, as you can see. So we are left with a free end of right pulmonary artery. Then after this we are checking for any squirting or leak after spraying water. Now we will move towards the main pulmonary artery and make an incision over it towards the right posterior lateral portion, which is an anatomical site of attachment of right pulmonary artery. Now we are extending the incision to make an appropriate lumen for anastomosis. After this, anastomosis was done between the main pulmonary artery and the right pulmonary artery after tunneling it below the aorta. And then after confirming the adequacy of both the lumen, anastomosis was completed. So now we have completed the anastomosis and filled the heart to check for any skirting or leak. Then the aorta was clamped and a cardioplagia was given to arrest the heart. Now the third defect of the heart was addressed through an incision given over the right atrium. Ventricular septal defect is closed here using a Dacron patch with a 2 mm of fenestration left behind to protect the heart from sustaining pulmonary artery hypertension. Similarly, atrial defect was also addressed. Then we started to wean off from the cardiopulmonary bypass, and you can see the pacing wires were placed for maintaining the rate and rhythm. Then on an intraoperative monitor, the oxygen saturation was 100%, suggestive of no right to left shunt with normal pressures. Then we did an epicardial echo on which we can see patent flow along the pulmonaries and minimal left to right shunt across a small defect left behind in the intra-atrial septal defect and the interventricular septal defect. Then after this we left the chest open using a splint and covered with a silicone membrane, as there will be myocardial edema postoperatively. Patient was shifted to ICU on ilodilators, inotropic support along with peritoneal dialysis, and we planned for elective closure of the chest after 48 hours. Now I would invite Dr. Prerna ma'am to talk about the postoperative course of the patient. Thank you.
So this patient had one mediastinal and one pleural drain, and our antibiotics were continued and decongestions were continued. So on postoperative day 2, the hemodynamics were stable on our supports, and you can see in this video that the myocardial edema had come down, the ventricular contractility looked good. Hemodynamically, the patient was stable on our supports, and so chest closure was attempted. This is the first X-ray, post-operative X-ray, post-chest closure, which showed opening up of the left upper lobe. And on 2D echo, we could see that the VSD was completely closed with a slight flow through the fenestration. An adequate repair was performed. The MPA has been, MPA shows laminar flows into the RPA. But one concerning factor was the LV function, which we expected to reduce because suddenly we had taken off 4 shunts from the heart and the afterload had increased on the LV. So to address this LV dysfunction, we started the patient on IV levosimendan and tapered off our other inodilator milrinone and substituted the patient with oral NVAS. On subsequent follow-up, the X-ray showed improvement in the left lower lobes as well, showing aeration and opening up of the X-ray. On echo, the LV function had definitely improved from before, but dysfunction was still present, and so we planned to do a second round of the calcium sensitizer inodilator levosimendan. But another concerning issue at this point was our persistent sepsis. So to address that, we upgraded our antibiotics. So all these measures on follow-up showed an improvement in the LV function. And because we had an improvement in the echo, the hemodynamics, a reduction in the airway pressure, we planned this patient for extubation. The child was extubated to NIV support, and finally over the next 10 days we weaned the patient off support, initially NIV to normal room air, tapered off the adrenaline and followed by dobutamine. Antibiotics were de-escalated. Aggressive chest physiotherapy and nebulizations were continued. nutrition was optimized, calorie-dense feeds were continued. And this is the discharge echo, which shows good LV function and mild mitral regurgitation. The T-discharge X-ray showed a completely opened up left lung field with a reduction in the cardiomegaly. We followed, the patient had come for follow-up about a few days back, on which we did a repeat CT. This is the recon of the CT post-operative, and it shows confluent branch PAs with no branch PA stenosis. So we can say that the repair was adequately done. So in conclusion, I would say that medical management is futile when your cardiac defect drives sepsis or perfusion. Timely intervention can reverse physiology, allow resolution of infection, and prevent multi-organ failure. Early surgical correction in the face of infection may be the only route to recovery in complex congenital heart defects, and a multidisciplinary coordination is always the key to success. Thank you for your patient listening.